Are you in London, Stephen?
Yeah.
Good.
Right.
I flew, I had a concert on March 11th in London, and then I took one of the last flights to Switzerland, and right before that, the whole thing went to, went bonkers. So I managed to do a concert, which felt really, it felt strange to think it was the last concert for a while, but
maybe all year.
Yes, unfortunately, now it's starting to be into September, well into September, the cancellations. Anyway, I think we're going to start now. So I'm going to switch to Spanish just for a second.
Listo, Roberto.
Buenas tardes. Sí, yo ya empiezo, ¿vale, Andrés?
Sí, señor.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. Yo soy Roberto González Monjas, desde la dirección artística de Iberacademy, que formamos el maestro Alejandro Posada y yo, pues os quería dar la bienvenida a En Primera Persona. Es un ciclo de entrevistas con grandes maestros de la música clásica, y en las próximas semanas vamos a tener la posibilidad de descubrir no solamente lo que piensan, sino también lo que son y cómo son. Este ciclo lo organizamos desde Iberacademy. Para todos aquellos que no conozcan Iberacademy, somos un programa cuya misión es contribuir a la educación musical de niños y jóvenes con talento en Colombia y en Latinoamérica. Este espacio que inicia hoy es, de alguna manera, una estrategia de Iberacademy para compartir inspiración, ilusión y música en una situación tan complicada como la que ha creado el coronavirus. Voy a pasar el inglés para decirle hola a nuestro invitado de hoy. From everybody here in Iberacademy, we wanted to give you a very warm welcome to our series of interviews and talks, which we have titled En Primera Persona. Over the next few weeks, we are going to have an opportunity to chat to many inspiring artists from our times. And for those who are tuning in for the first time, I just wanted to say hello from Iberacademy. We are a music education program which aims to nurturing and giving support to young, talented generations of musicians in Colombia and in Latin America. And now, yes, I would like to introduce the one and only Steven Isserlis. Hello, Steven.
Hello.
It's so nice to have you with us. Really, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for being with us. I don't know how to introduce you, because you are not only a world famous cellist, soloist, chamber musician, educator, writer. I mean, do you do it on purpose, just to to have such long title of things you do?
That's by accident.
Yes. I have to tell you, what I love most about you is that you're the most unique voice. The fact that you advocate for musical freedom, for information, for knowledge, for curiosity. And this is something that inspires me very much, and all of us here in Iberacademy. So the fact that you're here kicking off this is very important. Now, first question is just, we're all here because of the coronavirus. We probably wouldn't have to do this if it wasn't because of the virus. How are you coping? Is it a positive or a negative experience with you? Have you learned something that you didn't know about yourself in these days? Has it changed your routines?
I wouldn't say I've learned something about myself, no, but that's not a very interesting subject. But I have learned a few pieces. So that's good. I'm back to practicing the Bach suite, which I haven't played for ages. And I've actually not for the past few nights, but before that I was listening to a late Beethoven quartet almost every night, following in the score. Not that I particularly want to play them, but I just wanted to get to know them. There's been positive things. I mean, in other ways, financially it's a disaster, of course, for everybody.
It is.
I don't know, I've had the virus, I think. Doesn't mean to say I won't get it again, but they tell us now. But
as long as you're healthy now.
Yeah,
yes, that's important.
But I lost my.
Well, yes, I can understand. Well, one of those aspects I find also amazing. I've been just going through operas and scores that I really wanted to go through, and I never had the time for. And now this is a luxury, right?
Yes.
Reminds us in a way of what we don't have in our usual life, I guess.
Yes, I suppose so. Time.
Yes.
Have more time, but still every day is much too short.
Yes.
Run out of time every day.
We keep busy. We keep busy. Now, I'm going to dive into one of the topics that our students have mentioned most. I'm going to read a quote from your rantlets, as you call them on Facebook, which are extremely enlightening every time. You said something like, one should have a constant inner spell check-like sensor, saying, do I really mean what I'm playing, or am I just doing this because everyone else does it? I know, we have this friend in common, Ferenc Rados, who always has this question in mind. And you also mentioned this question as kind of a driving force behind one's musical journey, the why. Why do we do things? Can you tell us something about this? How did you get to this realization that is the why that drives your way of thinking? And also, how did this play in a world when many people just rely on tradition and on preconceptions?
Yeah, well, tradition is a funny word. They're very good traditions, and then I know my American teacher used to say, "Oh, the traditional way of doing this is," what he meant was the modern way, which is not very traditional. I think why I was brought up to ask why. I mean, I don't like insincerity, and for me, if somebody does a slide, they don't mean. If somebody does vibrato, they don't mean. If somebody does rubato, they don't mean. That annoys me because it's insincere. And one has to be sincerity. One has to do the minimum, to sort of just to let the music through. And of course, then you need a lot of rubato, you need a lot of vibrato, slides, everything, but they have to be part of the music. They have to be, you have to listen to the harmonies and what the harmonies suggest. And that's where your colors come from, and the structure of the piece, and not from carelessness.
Yes. I find it myself very hard still. I catch myself saying one thing and doing another many times. And what's hardest for me is developing a self-critical ear in a way that is analytic from an objective point of view. How do you do that? Does it become easier with the time, or do you always need to be vigilant? And do you record yourself? Do you listen to recordings that you do? Do you do something like that? That's something that could help us all get a bit better on this.
Well, it can be useful to record yourself. I'd rather not, because it's like listening to your own voice. You never like it. Occasionally I have, and of course I have to listen. If I make a commercial recording, I have to listen to the edits. So, and when I'm making the recording, I try and make myself listen to one take at least, because that does show you things you were doing you didn't realize you were doing. It always creeps in. But yes, you always have to be vigilant. Never stop being vigilant. And I don't know, it's just, one has to keep very calm when one practices and really just listen out, thinking all the time. Never doing anything on automatic.
This is something that it was so clear to me. We used a little fragment of the opening of the Schumann concerto, which is famously difficult for the cellists. At least many of them complain about the famous leap and da 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 all this. But it dawned on me just not only how calm you are when you play these, and I guess that's a piece. I know that's a piece that you've become so accustomed and used to, and it's kind of a lover for you. But still, the utter sense of clarity and direction that you put on every note. There's just when you play it seems that there's no other possible way to convey that message in a way, and that takes me to realize how consciously one needs to practice. And what you said, this automatism that just creeps in and just makes us basically play passages from beginning to the end. Do you approach your practice in a, I would say, maybe different or unique way? Do you practice very slowly? Do you just break in passages? Do you simply see notes and connect them? Is there anything that you do, for example, in that beginning of the Schumann passage that could be an interesting insight for us?
Well, I don't know. I mean, of course, I play things at the piano. That's how I learn pieces or relearn them, and go back to that occasionally. I mean, the Schumann concerto I do know very well, so perhaps I haven't played at the piano for a bit, but I did certainly a lot. And I think listening to yourself and also to what's going on in the Schumann concerto, for instance, there's this flowing accompaniment in the violin. If you're not listening to that, your rubato is not going to make sense.
Yes.
And if you just listen to it and sort of ride on it, I think the piece almost plays itself in a way. It's a very open piece in that, it's very clear what he's expressing at all times, I think.
Also that beginning that many people take so slowly, and then suddenly the cello comes as he's correcting the tempo change. It's a weird. It starts weirdly already in many interpretations. It's ridiculous,
right? Because and I always beg the conductor to do it in tempo, which that conductor, because you're talking about Emmanuel Corvin, he did it because the cello actually takes up the melodic idea from the orchestra. It plays the same thing for the first couple of bars.
Yes.
The cello does the same.
Exactly.
So again, so if it's at a different tempo, it makes no sense. I mean, music has to make sense.
Do you find that in these iconic moments, because it happens very often that, I mean, in the Dvorak or Elgar, Schumann, concertos that everybody plays, and very often with those, let's say now, then in the negative way, traditions or preconceptions.
Clichés.
Yes, cliches. Do you find that you're a bit like a Don Quixote of the modern world, where you have to actually be fighting those huge preconceptions or cliches, as you say, and in a way, do you feel as if people were looking at you as, okay, what a strange idea, and you're the one who's saying, well, actually, that's what it says in the text. I mean, I'm not inventing anything new. How do you do?
Once you can point out that that's what it says in the text, it makes it difficult for people to argue. Dvorak is much more difficult than Schumann from that point of view, though, because there really are such cliches in the Dvorak, and these huge tuttis. That's the problem. You know, I very, very rarely have I got a conductor to do what it says at the beginning, which is in tempo. You know, it's not meant to be slow, the opening. It's not meant to be that expressive. And it's very difficult. Even conductors I really like, they'll take it a bit slower because they want to milk it a bit. Shouldn't be milked. And it's just, you know, Dvorak is, among cello concertos, I think Dvorak's the worst victim of cliche.
Yes. It's a bit like the Tchaikovsky concerto of violinists, in a way. I have the feeling there's a lot of weird freedom sometimes, isn't it?
Which just doesn't make sense because the thing is, there are many different editions of the Dvorak. The text is a nightmare. I know I've been asked to work on the new Henley edition, to do fingerings and bowing. I say only if I agree with your choices, because it's like 4 sources that are all equally valid. It's impossible, but the tempo indications never change through all the sources that I've seen. The tempo, and that's tempo relationships are so important. The Dvorak is not a rhapsody; it's actually a sonata, the first movement sonata form, basically. And
absolutely,
it's so important to keep that. Otherwise, it seems to last half an hour. The first movement.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, you've spoken already. You just somehow hinted at it, but I wanted to ask you, especially about this, because you've written about it. But I'm sure you can give us even more ideas now. The question came from a student: how do you approach learning a new piece from scratch? And I know that you've already listed kind of a process with the piano and so on, but could you, illustrate a bit?
Okay, well, for instance, the completely new piece I've been working on since lockdown is a Passacaglia by Walton. And it's the last thing he wrote, actually, for the solo cello. I never liked it. I was at the performance and I heard a couple more. I think, it's not a good piece. But then I thought, let's give it another try. It's Walton. I love Walton. I mean, he's a fabulous composer. So his last work is not going to be rubbish. So I sat at the piano. I analysed it. It's not at all difficult to analyse. It's a Passacaglia, which means it's a set of variations. And so you see where he puts in extra bars for the variations, where he goes free for a few bars and then comes back to the variation on the original Passacaglia theme, everything like that. You see it. And then it just falls into place. You say, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I enjoy that part of the process. I mean, I did know somebody who was, well, people have played me the Chaconne by Bach, and that I was very interested. So I just decided I'd look at that on the piano, and I discovered that there are 33 phrases, which I think is not a coincidence that Christ died at the age of 33. They say, I'm not religious.
Yes, absolutely.
And somebody said, are you very religious? I said, no, but Bach was. And things like that are great. Very exciting to find.
Yes, discovering.
I probably didn't discover it. I'm sure other people have noticed, but I didn't. But the Walton. So then I got to know it on the piano. I got to know what I think it's about. And then I put fingerings in the cello. And then I practiced every couple of days or so, play it through. I did record it on my iPhone just to send to a friend whose judgment I trust. I sent him the music as well. So yeah. But I think starting away from your instrument is the most important thing.
This is really relevant, and I'm going to repeat it in Spanish just for all of them who haven't understood properly. El maestro Isserlis siempre empieza a estudiar las obras desde el piano o desde la parte intelectual de alguna manera, y solamente después de haberla analizado, entendido y realmente desarrollado es cuando la ponen en el instrumento. There's something that I do with the orchestra a lot. Our students will be laughing now at home, because I make them sing a lot, also in orchestra.
Right.
This is something that with professional orchestras could come out as patronizing, but when it comes to Iberacademy, whenever there's something not being phrased in a natural way, or it's strange, we just don't manage to get a good phrasing or a good understanding of the phrase, then singing immediately helps. Why do you think this is? Is this because it's a human connection to the easiest instrument that we have inside ourselves, or something?
Yeah,
like
I mean,
this? What is this?
Anybody, I do the same in teaching. I say, okay, how would you sing this? And they sing, and I say, okay, play it like that. Because
exactly,
sort of ironically, as my girlfriend, who's a singer, pointed out, you know my girlfriend, Joanna.
Yes, I do.
Said everybody just sings musically except singers.
Yeah, it's interesting. The moment technique is involved, right? That's when things change. Exactly. I always say to my students, miserias técnicas, which means technical misery in a way, which is the moment that we're just constrained by this bow and violin, then we stop thinking of singing in a way, right?
Well, just being natural. You should play every phrase as you would sing it in the shower. You know, and everybody would sing it differently, and everybody would sing it musically if they just sang it to themselves, and that's what we should do on our instrument.
That's the interesting thing.
I have to say that I think you, judging from the video I saw, you've achieved that musicality. That was wonderful, that Beethoven symphony I saw.
Thank you. Steven is speaking about the Eroica that we did some years ago without conductor in Colombia, and that's the way he got to know about us, and it was a special concert actually. It was really special, and we're waiting for you to actually do something from the cello, maybe with me also, something,
with you.
Would be nice. Now, the whole singing thing takes me to the next thing I wanted to discuss with you in a way. And I loved something you wrote about educating one's instinct.
Yeah.
This is so important to me in a way. I'll read a quote. You said something like, the written notes and expression marks in music are just a guide, a code. Our task as interpreters is to make ourselves so familiar with the language of each individual composer that we speak it fluently. Now, I've encountered many times these people who separate completely instinct, thinking that it's just about expressing one's feelings, and intellect as inferring what the composer wants in a way. But rather than what you say, instinct can be educated so that we can actually find in an instinctive way what the composer might want. Can you tell more about this? I'm incredibly interested in this.
For instance, no matter how good one's instinct was, if one didn't know about the tradition in Baroque music of double dotting, you never come to it. You never look at the music and think, oh, that has to be double dotted. You have to have the education about the language the composer was writing, or the ornamentation or whatever. You do need to find out about that. But then it just completely, yes, you think that's it, that works. And your instinct says yes, but you have to educate it. Never go against your instincts. I mean, never sort of, I can't stand hearing Bach played like a sort of a lesson in Baroque style. It's ridiculous. But the Baroque style has to become part of you.
Of course. I mean, I remember a little rant you had about Berenreiter's famous Schubert accents, and it's true. I went on to see some quartets, and it's true that the moment you start looking at it, it becomes annoying, the fact that they've decided to change every diminuendo into an accent.
They're idiots. I mean, Berenreiter normally is not idiots. I love their Bach.
Of course.
Beethoven. But that Schubert is just a disaster, that edition. Yeah. Burn it if you have. And the piano sonata is apparently the same. My friend Stephen Huff said he's just been teaching it. And he remembered what I said. And he said his student was just completely playing distortions because he was playing from Berenreiter. I don't know, that's the worst Urtext edition of all time, I think, just about.
Yes. Many of the students ask me always, where do you learn classical style? Where do you have a book? Do you have a treaty that I can use? I always say it's a collection, it's baggage from all life, and one keeps learning. But if there was something that you would recommend to our students when it comes to informing themselves, starting to educate their instincts when it comes to Baroque and classical repertoire, which is probably the most difficult to grasp if you don't have that kind of education, what would you point them at?
Well, there's some very good books by Clive Brown that I've used quite a lot. Performance
classical practice. Yeah, performance practice.
I think those are very useful because he just mostly just quotes all these different, they all say different things, which gives you a lot of freedom. But it's I found those very useful, those books.
Yes, I always direct them as well to Harnoncourt just to get them started to think out of the box, for example. I think it's quite interesting. You've said something before which I really like, that not doing much, that, you know, taking the risk to say little, let the music speak. I've heard you before talk about conveying the emotions the score expresses rather than the ones you're deciding. Like, in a way, you put something on top of the piece, or you force something onto the piece rather than just letting it sing. How do you judge? You know, I have a question here. Is it possible to objectively keep a line between serving the composer's intention or starting to then deform or interfere in their intention? Is there, how do you draw that line? I know it's a difficult question, but how do you do that?
It's all a question of listening. You just have to listen and hear what, I mean, first of all, you have to know what the composer says. First of all, you need a good edition. Then you need to analyze, so you know the shape of the piece. And then you have to listen. And then if you're making a tortured sound, but hang on, there's no torture in the harmonies. Why am I doing that? So that's wrong. I mean, it just, everything has to be dictated by the harmonies and the shape of the music, really.
Exactly.
And I can't think of a time where a tortured sound like that is appropriate for just a D major chord or whatever. You know,
yes.
All come from the music. The colors must all just, you know, the music has to come through you. Don't get in the way with your own neuroses.
Yeah, that's extremely important. Yeah. We spoke before about learning a new piece from scratch, and one of my students was going the extra mile. How do you do it when you know a piece very well, but you haven't played it in a while? And then you, let's say at Dvorak, for example, and then you have to come back to the Dvorak. I know it's a piece you've done 1,000 times, but I know you're also painstaking when it comes to this process of reanalyzing. Do you sit down with a piece as if it was a first meeting again? How much do you let your previous echoes influence what you do?
Oh, well, they will. I mean, things I thought before will still be there. But I look at the score every time. And I look, and there's always new thing. I mean, Dvorak's a special problem because, as I say, I don't know which edition. I like the edition I grew up with, but whether it's his final thoughts, we just don't know. It's very complicated, that. But yeah, you just look at the score again, and it'll always tell you new things. It's like a friendship. You know, you won't say the same. A friend won't say the same things to you every time you meet. It'll say different things, and that's what a piece of music is. Like friends, it'll tell you something. You'll look at it. Oh, that's what he means. That's what he means. It'll always say new things to you if you keep looking or keep listening to what the composer is saying.
Yes, absolutely. I have the feeling sometimes just time is enough in order to somehow move the perspective just ever so slightly so that things fall into place better than the last time, for example.
Yeah, well, differently. I mean, it's just, as I've often said, I mean, one's interpretation changes without one even noticing, just as one's face, I mean, the youth orchestra won't know about this, but one's face acquires wrinkles and one doesn't know when one looks at it from day to day. One doesn't notice, but it's changing.
Do you ever go on stage or onto a rehearsal and you have the feeling, oh, I still don't grasp these?
Not often. Occasionally, maybe there'll be a few bars or something, but generally, because I pretty much choose what I play these days. So I tend to choose pieces I understand. I mean, there could be, I suppose, and there could be pieces that suddenly become clear when you're performing them. It's funny, Messina Quartet for the End of Time was always a piece I hated rehearsing. I found it very boring to rehearse, and then the concert could be wonderful suddenly.
Yeah, it somehow becomes magic, right?
Yeah, there are pieces.
It's crazy. Yes, absolutely. No, I find it always hard to go on a stage and, you know, as you said, bars or even phrases, just not to know what to do. I feel I'm not doing. I haven't done enough. But of course, sometimes I guess we also have to go through those processes in order to learn. Now, I've heard you talk about solving technical issues, and you have a very, very unique take on this, because you yourself have spoken about, I think, being in a practice room and suddenly wanting to improve your technique and starting to play worse every time during your youth or something like this. And many times you've said that you'd rather solve technical issues away from the instrument. This is something that many of our students have picked up on. First analyze what really causes, or first have a technical, a musical idea, and then find a technical solution to it. How do you do this? What kind of process that goes through your mind when you actually have a technical problem, or let's say an issue, and you need to fix it away from the instrument? I'm very interested.
Well, I mean, solving technical issues is not, I'm not a great teacher for that at all, because I was always that, I sort of do my instinct technique, but I sort of, you come away from the instrument and you can imagine, why was that tight? Why did I? And then you can sort of think, you almost imagine your hand doing it in a relaxed way. Like, I remember once I was having terrible troubles with a Bach Allemande, I think it was. And then I went and played it on the piano. And suddenly, I don't know, I relaxed with it, and then I came back and technically it was relaxed on the cello and it worked, I think. So, I don't know, I mean, it's, but to sit there sort of hammering away at a problem, making it worse, because relaxation is such an important part of technique. I don't think tension helps in any way. Of course, you don't want to be flaccid. You don't want to be sort of, without energy. Of course, you need energy, but you don't need tension. And you need strength. You don't need sort of tension that knots up your body and knots up your technique. That's very dangerous. And it's very dangerous to practice it in, because muscle memory is strong. So if you're having a problem and you're not solving it, take a break, think about it away from the instrument so that you're not miseducating your muscles, and then go back. But just remember, a relaxed technique tends to be a good technique.
Yes, I still have a couple pieces in my repertoire, and I say this with great regret, that I learned in that way, hammering down technically, and I still, up to today, I cannot play them as comfortably as pieces which are much more difficult somehow. But I have still this tension, and I also this remembrance of playing them for an audience and just not being able to deliver musically whatsoever, and just being worried about those leaps or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, I was at that concert where you played that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You've only been at one concert of mine, and we were playing together, so I think cannot be to a cello concerto. No, but it's so interesting. This is what you say, and also the fact that your this is a message which is very important for me to convey to my students in Iberacademy. The fact that all technique has to do with a musical idea first, or all technique only serves a purpose, and the fact of just hammering your body 8 hours a day in order to do long notes, or just iron over the strings in a way doesn't make any sense, because if there's not an idea behind, there's
some people feel you have to have pain in order to be doing good practice. It's not true.
Also these democratic, as I call it, the democratic bow speed and democratic changes, the fact that then the playing starts stiffening up so much that you don't manage to have the freedom to speak with your playing, right?
Exactly. I mean, I can't think of a note where I want completely equal bow distribution.
Yes.
I don't.
Thank God you said that.
People sort of seem to think, oh, your bow's not steady. I don't want my bow to be steady. A note has to live, and that means there are different speeds within every long note. Always.
Yeah. Para los que solo hablan español, una de las cosas más importantes que me parece que dice Steven es el hecho de que siempre tiene que haber una idea musical antes de entrar en cualquier tipo de técnica, y que pasarse 8 horas al día planchando sobre la cuerda o haciendo unos ejercicios sin tener un propósito musical, lo único que uno le hace es que la mente se le encuadre de alguna manera, y no tiene la flexibilidad o la libertad de poner su técnica al servicio de la música. Yeah, this is very, very, very interesting. Now, someone wrote, could Steven give advice to a younger version of Steven, a student Steven, when it comes to a couple of things? What is the homework a young student must do in order to be just prepared to learn and get better? We're not talking about winning competitions or auditions. What kind of set of skills do you think, or at least how could I say, instead of preparation here in one's head, one should have in order just to absorb things, to start looking at the world with a critical and let's say curious perspective.
I know somebody asked me the other day what I'd say to my 16-year-old self. It's difficult. I'd say be sensible. Don't be silly as I was. I used to offend people just because I thought they were important, therefore I mustn't suck up to them. That was stupid. But I think, I don't know, just be open, just never lose your love of music. Remember, you haven't failed if you're not a soloist. You haven't failed even if you're not a professional musician. You failed if you lose your love of music. That's a real failure. I mean, you should keep loving music, whether you become a professional musician or not, and keep enjoying it. I mean, the career side is different, but, that's not all enjoyable. And if that becomes your most important focus, then you're going to lose your love of music. It's the music that matters. It's the composers that matter.
Someone was saying that for some young musicians to stay motivated after a certain age is difficult because of the overall feeling of failing if not reaching a certain level or amount of repertoire and success already from an early age. And I know you've spoken about these in competitions and when when people who are too young just get those contracts and those recording contracts and those, it's what you say is an important message. I find, because so many people, as you say, don't enjoy, but also really stop learning music or stop just doing music and enjoying it just because of having this feeling that a teacher or a family member or someone else from the music business might have instilled in them. And isn't it very unfair that people somehow cut their dreams just because of that?
I know. It is. It's ridiculous. No, I hate competitions, and I hate a lot of teaching that goes on. The values, false values. I think, it's not so common in Britain to carry a gun, but I think if I carried one, I'd be dangerous if I heard the word competition or projection. Those are two words I hate in music.
Yes, I've heard the thing with projection before. Yes.
Projection. Just such rubbish.
But also, I've suffered this myself. There was a moment in my life in which I wanted to audition for something I really wanted. It was a concertmaster position in a youth orchestra, and my lifetime dream at the time was to become a concertmaster. And there was a person who well, I didn't get the audition, which is fine, but there was a person who was in the jury and took the time and energy to tell me that I should lose the idea of becoming a concertmaster, that I moved too much, that I was too Mediterranean in a way, or too Latino, can you imagine? And told me, you just maybe focus on something else because you will never be a concertmaster in a major orchestra. And actually, if it wasn't because of my parents were very supportive, I would have actually let that dream go, and I would have maybe never profited from being a concertmaster of the Santa Cecilia Orchestra or something like this. So it's, I agree with you. I mean, maybe not with the gun part, but you know what I mean. It's yeah.
I mean, my career didn't really start to take off at all till I was 30. I mean, something happened in my late 20s, virtually nothing in my early 20s. Something's happened in my late 20s. But actually, it's funny because my son, Gabriel, he turns 30 tomorrow. So I was just saying this morning that actually I was quite depressed on my 30th birthday. I thought I just haven't made it. I'm never going to make it. And that year, everything changed and things got much better.
Do you think, because I do see a tendency of some people who are late starters in what you say, starting to be recognized after 30 or something like this, and they also tend to be those who are more insightful because they might have had more time to fight, to practice, to learn, to live life, and also to, as you said, to feel maybe this is not coming. So when it comes, they're more ready in a way. Do you think that makes sense at all?
It takes time for some people to find their own voice. It took me time. I mean, I was sort of finding my own voice, but it was very eccentric because I was taught in a very eccentric way, and I just had to sort of smooth down the edges. And it wouldn't have been good for me to have had a big career when I was 20 because I wasn't ready, and nor was I ready for a great cello. but 30 was better.
Interesting.
So, yeah, and I never won a big competition at all. I was knocked out of the first round, I think, of the last 2 competitions I tried. So I stopped. That's why I think there's such bad things, obviously. But I mean, my friend Joshua Bell, he also never won a competition. Yes. Many of my most successful friends never won. Anders Schiff never got first prize at a competition. People like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Lo que Steven Isserlis está diciendo es que su carrera empezó bastante tarde, después de los 30, y que él nunca ganó un concurso importante y que a él le costó un tiempo determinado buscar su voz y encontrarla. Y eso es muy importante, porque si uno lo único que hace es luchar por estar en el mercado, pero sin voz, en el momento en el que uno empiece a estar en el mercado, esa voz nadie le va a interesar, no la va a escuchar. Me parece muy interesante. Now, Steven, I find it especially beautiful that you take your time to educate and to reach out to younger audiences and children, and you've done several books for children and for youngsters and young musicians. In Iberacademy, we're all about teaching and being grateful, passing on. What is your relationship to pedagogy and education, and why are you drawn to it in a way?
I don't know. I think because I had such great teachers myself, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's my duty to pass it on, but also, yeah, I mean, I don't respect a famous so-called soloist any more than I respect somebody like you mentioned, Ferenc Rados, or my teacher, which is long dead, Jane Cowan. They were just as important as any player. I mean, Rados plays, but not very much. He doesn't anymore.
No, not anymore.
As teachers, they're equally important musicians to more famous players. That's, teaching is just as important as performing. And yeah, because I always say I had 4 great teachers, and I like to pass on the values they gave me.
Who were the 4 teachers, Stephen?
Jane Cowan, who was my main teacher from the ages of 10 till 17, and even after that. And then Sándor Vég, great Hungarian violinist and conductor, who started Prusakov, where I met him. And then Ferenc Rados, who teaches.
There we overlap.
Exactly. The 3 of them are Hungarian. And the 4th was the Hungarian composer, György Kurtag, who I'm very much in touch with at the moment. And I've mostly studied his works with him, but that's taught me so much about how a composer thinks. And so those 4. And it would be very mean of me not to pass that on. And I enjoy passing it on. I enjoy working. I enjoy playing chamber music with young musicians. I enjoy working with youth orchestras. I enjoy teaching these youngsters. So I like it.
Yeah, it's just I'm interested to these because that's exactly what I have the feel. I mean, I don't have nearly as much experience or knowledge as you do, but I already feel that it's my duty to pass whatever little I might know to pass it on already. And I see somehow this allergy from some I'm going to call them glitterati of the classical music world who are just so focused on the result, on it being so perfect and refined and so on, that they don't trust that through an academic or pedagogic environment this might happen. But actually, my experience with youth orchestras is that the biggest excellence and some of the most vibrant concerts I've ever done are with them, which is energy is extraordinary, no?
Yeah, absolutely. You could hear that on that video. That's why I tweeted about
funny.
it.
Yes,
and no, absolutely. I love playing with youth orchestras, and I love playing for children as well. When it goes well. You can lose them, that's terrible, but that hasn't happened for a bit, but I haven't done it much for a bit. But
what drew you to that, to appealing to children, especially through your books? That I'm very interested, because that is something that I've never done, for example, doing things for such young age. And I'm interested, what drew you to that?
I think just having my son, I was hopeless. I did a couple of children's concerts. They were disasters until my son was born. And then I spent time with him, and I wanted to do things for him. And that really made all the difference.
Yeah, maybe I need to become a father to understand that then. Yes, interesting. No, but yeah, that's great. Because I know, for example, Hilary Hahn has done these and these concerts for children and so on. And I know that there's just a couple of people who devote themselves to that. So that I found very interesting.
Oh, it's great.
Now, there is something I was talking to some friends the other day about contemporary music, premieres, modern works, and you've been a champion of many of them. This is clear to all of us who've read your biography and seen, and heard your CDs. Now, one of the things, it all comes in the same package in a way. It's about audiences and perception of audiences when it comes to contemporary music, and the work that goes into preparing one of those works for the first time. I have the feeling that many times when it comes to contemporary music, players or conductors or singers become very unmusical because it's just about doing the right rhythms and the right tempo. And sadly, there's no room for whatever other musical impulse or phrasing which we would use in any Beethoven or Schumann or Brahms anymore. What do you think? Is this something you agree with?
Well, it shouldn't be. In a way, it's easier to play contemporary music because, if I have a problem with a phrase in Beethoven, don't quite know what he meant, I can call him, but he won't answer. Whereas if it's Kurtag or Tom Sadis or something, I can call them up. I can say, what do you mean by this? So that's very useful. And no, I work very, very, I don't play that much, especially these days. But when I do, I work until I can make music of it. I mean, it's been very interesting, as I say, working with Kurtag, who just wants every note just so. And I just also played a new piece by Heinz Holliger, who it's not so much my natural language, but boy, working on it with him was impressive.
He's phenomenal. Yeah,
he knows exactly what he wants. I really enjoy that. I love being sort of stretched by composers. But yeah, no, it shouldn't be any different, really. I mean, it's great that Kurtag's there to explain these pieces to me, because I don't think I'd understand them without having him there to explain them, but I have had him there to explain, so it's wonderful.
You've said sometimes, or at least I think I read about trying to make something natural out of the piece rather than selling it, or finding ways for people to relate to pieces rather than selling them. And especially when it comes to contemporary works, I have a feeling that many people try to sell something quickly and just at the beginning of the concert, but I find that one should maybe be even more zealous, more painstaking when it comes to these, in order for the piece to feel as natural as a Beethoven would feel. Yeah. I just find there's a barrier in a way, right?
Maybe. I think a lot of conductors just put in a contemporary piece at the beginning of the program because it gets the grant for the orchestra or whatever, without believing. I mean, I often have conductors say, "Oh, it's not a very good piece," but I'm in a position, luckily, that I only play the piece. I mean, the Holliger was, as I say, not really my natural language, but I was, having worked on it with him, I was able to play it with real conviction because he convinced me. I think generally, of course, it's not always practical, but generally, one should only play the music one loves, because if you don't love it, how's the audience going to love it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Now, there's one quote that I love, and I keep quoting you over and over with this. Yes, you get quoted very often here.
I get copyright.
You said something like, music is not about performance. Performance is about music.
Oh, did I? That's good.
Yes, you did. Oh, you see, did you copy that from someone else? No, but I find this extremely important because, and you've mentioned in a joking way, of course, the whole thing with the hair and moving, and the fact that when you move, and you're as I do, you're a player who actually moves a lot with the music, but you never, that's never calculated or never show. It's just whatever you might be feeling or whatever physically helps you in order to achieve these. But there's so many teachers, and again, don't mention the gun again, but there's so many teachers and so many people who, and I spent most of my life being told that I move too much, and that my moving will not play good for audiences, and that my moving, but I wanted some words of encouragement from you to all these youngsters who are many times being just, like in a telephone booth, rather than just letting their own physicality help their musicality.
Sure, if the music is dancing, your body will want to feel as if it's dancing as well. I mean, don't put it on. I went through a stage putting it on. I got a big lecture from a teacher I respected very much, and I stopped. I mean, when I occasionally see videos of myself, I think, I do move too much. I shake my hair around too much. But I don't know I'm doing it. It just happens.
Yes.
Don't play in a. Funny, my American teacher used to say, play in a phone booth. He actually said use that expression, but that was just to make me use less bow. Yeah, everything's got to be natural. It's got to be you, but it has to come from the music. Not just about you, it's about the music, but you and the music.
I remember Rados, he came to a concert of mine in Verbier where it was a three-hour evening of Bach, piano concertos and suites and Brandenburg concertos. And he stayed till the end. And then he came to me and I thought he was going to bash through a lot of things, but he always had one comment. He said, I don't have any problem with you moving. You're moving from the waist upwards is very inspiring for the orchestra. But you always bend your knees. And when you bend your knees, you're just giving them this up and down all the time, which doesn't necessarily help. Yeah. And it's true, this is something that I still do when I conduct. I'm trying to be more and more conscious about this. But it's true that there's some movement which doesn't help, of course. But I was amazed that someone as minimalistic as him, because he really is almost against even just giving you his hand
he moves a lot when he plays.
But he moves exactly when it comes to the right physicality, right? And that's what I realized that in that moment, not before, in a way.
So he does move a lot. Actually, it's sort of the moments when he's on one buttock quite often.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's interesting. No, the future of classical music is called the next question, because I know you have to go through this one as well. But there's been several questions regarding Brexit and also the current political situation and coronavirus. I just think this gives us a chance to reflect a bit on the fact that we might all be reshaping the way we think of music and its function in life and society in a way. You have vast experience, your voice, which is heard all over the world in classical music. How does the future of classical music look to you? Is it a priority for you to keep music in the concert halls? Is it about reaching more people? Is it about reaching young audiences? What are your concerns when it comes to the next years or the next generations in a way?
Well, yeah, I mean, the main thing is to play well in a way that people will be attracted to the music, not to sort of say I'm breaking down barriers and do sort of, Mozart with rock accompaniment or, playing big stadiums or whatever. That's rubbish. Most crossover is absolute rubbish. But it's more a question, of making, let's say, so if we play the music properly, people will want to listen. And I think after this ghastly time where can't get into a concert hall, I think hopefully people come when they feel safe, they'll come flocking back. They'll need it. I mean, I cannot wait to go on the stage of, say, the Wigmore Hall again. And
yes, of course.
I'm back. We're back, all of us, as things should be.
I did a concert 2 days ago, a tiny concert with 5 colleagues, with enough distance in a garden, so open air, and with 10 people in the audience. It was just a kind of a private thing for a sponsor of our orchestra here in Winter Tour. But it felt both so strange after 1.5 months of not playing with anyone, and also so liberating and so wonderful to just have other human beings to make music with, which in a way just shows how important it is, and it's all about connection in a way, right? It's just how it is.
I mean, it is. And the concert, people say, oh, the classical concert is dying. It's rubbish. I think audiences are growing, as far as I can see, or were. And it's a great setup. It's a bit weird, come on, sort of people wearing these strange clothes, and then people knock their hands together, and
yes,
and the performers sort of bend over. It's all a bit odd, I suppose, but I think it's great.
Like, someone was saying whether these might be the best way because young people get kind of frightened with the whole protocol of the concert, and in a way,
in China, which is the new powerhouse of music, only 30% of tickets are available for people under 30 or something. Otherwise, they buy everything.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of exaggeration about how old audiences are. And it's just true that people with more time and more money, but also particularly more time, who need to reflect on the important things in life, they're going to come to classical music. But that's all right. They'll be replaced by other people who come to it later.
Yes,
I'm
indeed.
very worried about the future of classical music, and people need
Well,
it.
that's reassuring to hear. Well, it is true. I mean, social media has been boiling with classical music in general, but especially classical music. And I'm actually astonished how many people have reached out and asked, is there a chance? Can you guys post things? We miss you. So it actually shows a situation as horrible as this one actually shows how much people need music in their daily lives. And this is something that with our busy careers, we might be underplaying or underestimating in a way, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yes.
people absolutely need music. We'll see when finally the vaccine is found. I hope it is.
Yes, me too.
Then then we'll see when it's safe to go back in the concert hall. I think there'll be a flood of people going back.
Now we're going to enter the anchor section. Just a couple last questions because we know you're a very, very, very busy person. There's one which is needs a bit of candid moment from you. It is very often that our students are confronted with a moment when they think they want to quit. And they've asked me to ask you whether there was a moment in your life where you felt cello or music might not be what you want to do, or you want to go in another direction, or if frustration from not growing fast enough, or let's say or not going far enough, just made you in a way just doubt yourself or doubt the path that you have chosen for yourself as a musician.
Definitely. In my 20s, especially when I just wasn't getting any concerts. Nobody seemed to want to listen to me. And, luckily I had parents who were supportive and a family trust that paid me a bit and things. But no, there were definitely times of real sort of misery when I thought, I'm never going to make it. It's not going to happen for me. And I would rather have done another profession at that point than sort of got into sessions or whatever, I mean, people have to do them, but I really didn't want to, having had such high hopes. I didn't want to do film sessions and things. So yeah, I was thinking of giving up, and luckily I had friends who were supportive enough and family supportive enough to talk me out of it. But you will have these moments, they will come, but hopefully one gets beyond them. Well,
know that what you are doing for us today, just this hour, is already a big support for us in these times where everybody, it's not even a joke. In Colombia, they're in full lockdown and they cannot get out of the houses. So it is the greatest inspiration that you give us an hour and you help us just understand, who's behind the curly hair. That's very important. Really.
Underneath it. Oh God, that's one thing I also look for. I look forward to concert, or I also look forward to hairdressers opening.
Well, I try to somehow build a whole thing here because my hair just goes in all kinds of directions. Yes, it's a problem of national security. The no access to hairdressers for sure. Now, you've spoken of many different influences in your career, and we spoke about tradition as a word being double-sided because it can also mean great things. What do you consider? There's a beautiful question here. Do you consider that younger generations of performers or teachers are missing any important points or elements from the legacy of the great masters in the past? Are there things that we need to rescue or take care that just don't get lost on the way, on the fastness of the path that we see, every day now, and social media and all of these?
Well, it's a mixture. I mean, for me, a lot went wrong after the Second World War. But now, people have the chance to listen to the players who were playing between the wars. For instance, the violinist Thibaut, Enescu, Kreisler, Sigeti.
Yes.
These people, they can hear them on YouTube. They can hear Casals. They can hear the great pianists at that time. So in that way, they have the possibility. I mean, I don't think one should listen to people playing a piece one is playing oneself, but it's worth getting to know that. And, those people are nearer to the composers of the 19th century. I think they're more representative. And then the Second World War seemed to make a break somehow. And anything post-Second World War, for me, tends to be less valuable. Not everything. But yes, I mean, just question even what your teachers say. Of course, one has to respect one's teachers, but make sure they really are speaking your truth before you accept it. There's a lot of bad teaching around and distorted teaching, distorted values. Make sure that you really believe what you're doing and what you're hearing.
Yes, word, absolute word. I mean, I do remember having had some strong discussions with my teachers when I was really stubborn and thought this is the way I want. Could be a phrase, not necessarily a whole, technical path, but just something that I really felt strongly about. And at the moment, I felt really bad that I would be, questioning what my teacher would give me. But I do remember a beautiful moment with my teacher in Salzburg, Igor Ozin, who was a one of those legends who formed generations of violinists. And getting near to the final of my studies, I played the Busoni second violin sonata, which is one of my favorite sonatas to play on stage. And I played it for him, and he said, I could do it differently. I would do it differently. But now I see that all these years you've been gearing up towards a direction, and now I can see that direction. So I don't want to interfere anymore. I just want to send you to the next step with as much strength as you could possibly gather. So the next months are just going to be your ideas, not mine anymore. I found it so generous and so special.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yes.
That's a good teacher. Sounds
yes,
like a wonderful teacher.
He was a wonderful teacher indeed. Now, Steven, it's been an absolute pleasure. I don't want to take more of your time because it's been really already an amazing thing to have you there. You are very warmly invited to Colombia. I'm going to speak to your wonderful agent soon because we have to make this work.
Can I see some of the people listening?
No, I wish, but they're all listening over Facebook. We will send you a picture. Don't worry. Okay. I will do this. But I want to thank you very much for doing this. I'm just going to tell our wonderful audience, thank you so much for being here with us. Next appointment is Lisa Patiashvili on Wednesday, 29th of April, 10 a.m. Colombian time, 4 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. What is it? GMT European. +2, exactly.
European.
European time. And don't forget to follow Iberacademy on Instagram, Facebook to get to know what's going on. Muchísimas gracias a todos los que nos han seguido. Muchísimas gracias a Steven, que ha sido fenomenal por darnos esta oportunidad de conocerle mejor. La próxima es el miércoles 29 de abril con Lisa Patiashvili a las 10 de la mañana en Colombia, a las 4 de la tarde en Inglaterra, a las 5 de la tarde en hora europea. Y no se olviden de seguirnos en Facebook y en Instagram para las siguientes. Thank you, Steven, so much. We love you very, very much. Thank you so much.
See you when we get back to sanity.
Yes, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.